Today we're going to first discuss how your workspace looks to you and how to navigate around your space. This is kind of an introduction, and so what I want you to do is just kind of follow along and take notes as needed, but you can always refer back to this video whenever you forget something or you want confirmation on a certain function within Adobe Illustrator. This is CS6, as we know, and what you're seeing right in front of you is sort of your workspace, your general workspace. What I'd like you to first do is to open up a new document, which you go up into your File menu, go File, New. You have a new document window. This new document window, of course, has a ton of different things for you to choose from. But first of all, we're going to specify the number of artboards that we're going to be working with. Right now, I'd like to just keep it at 1, keep it simple, because we're going to be focusing on the outer edges of your working space. So the name of this will be test.ai for Adobe Illustrator. The profile will be either, usually custom is how it defaults, but of course you can choose print, web, video and film, whatever you feel is specific to your purpose within AI. I'm going to let it default to custom. Number of artboards, again, 1. Size, tabloid is 17 by 11. I prefer to do letter. And right now it's set to landscape. I prefer to do portrait at this particular time just because we're getting to know our workspace. I don't want anything too different than what I'm used to viewing. I like to stay comfortable, so to speak. All right, so advanced, you can pop that open and check. We're working with CMYK, cyan, magenta, yellow, black. We're working in high resolution or points per inch, and then preview mode, align new objects to pixel grid. All this I'm sort of just going to ignore for now. We're doing a basic new document, letter size. Let's add a 0.125 bleed. Of course, if I have this little chain link clicked on, it will follow for the top, bottom, left, and right if it is off. If I want to change that size, it only does it to 1. So if I click on, there we go. I like it at 0.125 for a bleed. Bleed is excess space outside of your trim or your page edge, and bleed is purposeful for the production of your piece because you want to make sure that anything that's purpose is supposed to go off the edges of your print document, that it does not, there's no way that it can actually show any sliver of white or show any issues. So we'll discuss that in more detail later. But for now, we'll keep it at 0.125 bleed. That's standard, and we should be ready to go. Say okay. Okay, so what you're viewing right now is your artboard, an 8.5 by 11 artboard. This red line around your artboard is actually the bleed marks. That's invisible. So if you do trim, if you do print something out, you have to tell it to show up. It won't show up unless you tell it within your PDF settings. Okay. You're viewing your control panel up at the top. A lot of the things in Illustrator will be context sensitive. If you have an object on the page, you can see things change up here according to what tool you're using. This is your toolbar to the left side. To your right side, you see a bunch of panels. They are anchored. The toolbar is anchored to the left side of your window. I should say your document window. And then the right side of your document window has all sorts of panels. I'd like you to just play around right now by clicking on a panel, clicking it again, clicking on a panel, clicking it again. Now me as a professional, I'm used to some of these icons more than I am others because I work on specific projects that require that I have certain panels open and others closed. So I haven't memorized all of them, but if you need to view any one of these and you don't see the icon that you're familiar with, for the panel, you can always go up into your window in the File menu, and you can find any one of those panels here as well. If you accidentally lose your toolbar, where'd it go? Go back up to Window, you can get it back, clicking on Tools. Okay, another thing you can do with some of these panels is you can bump out your panels, you can click on one, click and drag, and you can actually take it away from the anchor. These panels come grouped with relevant other panels, color guide, and I believe swatches, brushes, symbols, all of those things are somewhat relevant to each other, and you may be using them as groups. So Adobe Illustrator has actually grouped them together. So you can open and close them here. I just closed out of one. There's also what you call is some additional options, some additional panel options under here. Right now we're viewing CMYK. Let's say you're working in an RGB document. You can actually change that over to RGB or grayscale. Okay, so you can find additional options here. And if you want to close out of some and only pull out the relevant panels that you will be working on, such as, let's say I'm working on stroke, which is outline, you can do so. I like pulling out my layers. I work in layers a lot in Illustrator. So let's say I work in layers, swatches, and stroke quite frequently, and I want to group these panels, but they're in different groups. I can do this by myself and specify my own little working space here. Now, when you hover, you have to hover just right. If you see this little tiny area here, you can click when the arrow shows up when I hover, you can click and open up that panel and expand it. But what you can also do is if you hold one panel and hover over that space, it all of a sudden turns invisible and you see that little cyan or bright blue colored line up here. That means that it's ready to group those together. And then you can move these around like so, expand them. Now I'm going to add the stroke. There it goes. It almost turns invisible, and then you see that blue colored line show up. So now I have certain panels. I'm going to show options. So now that shows all the options that have to do with stroke. So I have a series of 3 panels that are grouped, which I will work with often, which that may or may not be true, but depends on my particular project that I'm working on. But you sort of see how panels work in that way. Now let's say I want to log into my workspace from the same computer, but I don't want to have to do this every single time. There's a way that you can go up to your Essentials up here in your control panel in the upper right hand corner. It usually defaults to Essentials. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is you can add a new workspace. I'm going to do Christie's common workspace, because this is a workspace that I'm going to want to work with quite frequently. And I'll say OK. So now every time I log into this computer and launch Illustrator, I have the opportunity to go to Essentials or to go to Christie's Common Workspace, which will show certain things that I want. It'll have my document set up in the way that I want to work, and it'll also have my panels the way that it wants. Now, if for some reason someone asks you, a client asks you that you want to work on a certain project that requires that you use heavy typography, you may switch up here from Christie's Common Workspace or Essentials to typography. What has happened? All of my panels are sort of specific to type, glyphs, got appearance, we've got all sort of specific things that have to do with typography that all of a sudden become available to me. And this is a really nice feature. And it's context sensitive, so that means if you're focused on typography, a lot of things here will show typographic options: open type paragraph, character panel, character styles, paragraph styles. We'll learn all about those this term. Okay, so what if you're working and let's say I zoom in and all of a sudden I'm bothered by what I'm seeing and there's just too many panels and things right in front. Try hitting tab, and what this does is it gives you the opportunity to, for a quick moment, get rid of your control panel, your panels, and your toolbar real quick. Hit tab again, it comes back. So sometimes we as designers, we don't really want all that additional clutter. We just want to look real quick at what we're working on and not be distracted. So that's another thing you can do. Okay. If you're showing your toolbar, you can unanchor it from the side dock here. But you also can hit this little double arrow and it becomes a double toolbar. I do prefer to work that way. I'll anchor it back. You can hover just as you do trying to group panels. You can hover over to the dock and your toolbar can actually be re-anchored to the dock. So there's lots of different things that you can do. You know, this is your selection tool, your type tool. You'll be bouncing back and forth between your selection tool, type tool, and many other tools on this panel, as well as your fill and your stroke. Fill is what color is your object filled with. Stroke is what color is your object outlined with. So we'll get into that next, and as well as some text in chapter 2. But this is a nice introductory video for those of you who want to get more familiar with your workspace. Okay, see you in chapter 2.